Week 5 in the books. Monday Night Football, a wild one. The Chiefs over the Raiders 30-29. We'll get into the specifics of this game, some of the bizarre stat lines, and then a bizarre scene post-game with Davante Adams now potentially a suspension looming for the star wide receiver for the Raiders. And now that Matt Rhule has been fired, which coaches are on the hot seat? Who could be next in this NFL season in 2022? All that more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson with you. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Where we start, Matt, is Monday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs squeak by the Las Vegas Raiders 30-29. The game ended on a 4th and 1, and Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow are running into each other. I don't know what the route combination was supposed to be. It seemed like nobody really knew what it was. Davante Adams was asked after the game. He didn't quite have a good answer for what happened there. But the big takeaway for me watching this game was just the kind of crazy stat lines for some of the players in this game. Davante Adams.
Kelce.
Yeah. A lot more on Davante Adams later, by the way.
Yeah.
Might get a little hot water. It's just a bad situation after the game. But as far as the actual game goes here, Davante Adams, 3 catches for 124, averaging 41.3, 2 touchdowns on his 3 receptions, targeted 7 times. When they did hit him, it was a big play. And 2 touchdowns on those 3 receptions. And then on the other side, Travis Kelce, he had 8 targets, caught 7 of them. 4 of those 7 catches were for touchdowns. 2 of them were 1-yarders. He only averaged 3.6 yards per catch on 7 catches and had 4 touchdowns.
Unbelievable. I mean, Kelce speaks for himself. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, he just does it every week. I think he's starting to push things such as, is this the best tight end ever? I mean, I think he's starting to creep into those conversations, or him versus Gonzalez as Chiefs tight end ever. I thought he might drop off this year. He hasn't. I know his stat line besides the touchdowns aren't overwhelming, but clearly he's the straw that stirs the drink. Adams, though, man, I give Josh McDaniel credit. I mean, 4th and 1 in your own end, and you throw a 58-yard bomb to your stud receiver. Just set the tone for the game.
Yeah.
And then the other stat line I want to throw out there, too, is 154 yards by Josh Jacobs. I mean, in a contract year, he is killing it this year. And I couldn't believe that other coaching staffs for the Raiders didn't use him more as a receiver. I mean, they're actually throwing him the ball this year. He's running it extremely well. How about this crazy stat? Going into this season, Jacobs in his career had 1 catch on 3rd downs. That's crazy. I mean, he's not McCaffrey, but I mean, he's a good receiver. That was his scouting
report coming out of school.
Right, he was a good receiver.
He can play on 3rd downs. He's a good receiver, and he was never really used that way. And I thought maybe he just was not that good of a receiver after all, but no, it was the way he was utilized, which seems bizarre. And he was the offense for the Raiders in this game. Besides those few Davante Adams receptions, he had 5. He led the team in catches with 5 with 39 yards there, and then the 21 carries for 154 yards, averaging over 7 yards per carry there with the score. Had a couple long ones too. It's like it's really weird to see his usage change with the new coaching staff. And
overdue.
Interesting to see McDaniels. It looked like, oh no, is this the New England Patriots sort of committee backfield approach to start the year? And that's gone away. It's like, okay, Josh Jacobs is the guy for McDaniels and the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they franchise him after the year or whatever, but they did not pick up his 5th-year option, and it looks like he's taking it personally. Injuries have been an issue for his career, but I always thought he was an underrated player. I thought both quarterbacks played fine, not superb, but I really came away from this game going, boy, the Raiders are a pretty darn good 1-4 team.
They are, and we kind of knew when they were 0-3. It was like the Raiders aren't going to stay.
Yeah.
They're going to win some games. And they're in just a tough hole right now, and it's really bad because this is one of those you need with the team that's in first place in your division. It's going to be a dogfight in the AFC West all year long. So many teams ahead of them in the AFC if they want to try to make the playoffs. A 2-3 team right now for the Raiders is just vastly different with the win in the division versus a 1-4 team now in Kansas City.
Right.
Yeah,
they so much
home again. So a really rough loss, and you could see why, players like Davante Adams were really frustrated after the game.
Which brings us to the big story, obviously. And do you want to explain it a little bit?
Yeah. So for those who didn't see it, you can probably find a clip of it after the game. And you know what it's like, kind of chaotic after games, people running everywhere. And Davante Adams is heading into the tunnel, leaving the field. And somebody, it looked like they were maybe a cameraman or carrying a boom mic or something like that, is just kind of scurrying in a direction, kind of flashes in front of Davante Adams, trying to get somewhere right before he's walking into the tunnel. And he just pushes him down. He's just like, as if it was someone that he was blocking during the game.
Right.
Clearly frustration there, but he's been in this situation before. You know what it's like on the sideline of a game. There's people like, this guy's just trying to do his job and go somewhere, and Davante Adams knocks him over. Doesn't try to pick him up either. He just walks right by him. And he addressed it immediately after the game, and he wasn't even asked the question. He was asked a different question at his locker, and he actually said, no, I want to apologize to the guy I knocked over. And he kind of talked about what happened there. But it was a really bad look, and you could see why the frustration was there, and it's understandable. He's human, make mistakes, but it's a bad look. And now there's like legalities to it, because the man that was knocked over apparently has claimed that he's got some injuries. He's filed a police report against Davante Adams, and now the league looking into it, and there could be a suspension for Davante Adams.
Yeah, I mean, to his credit, and maybe this will help his case, he got in front of it. He's the first thing he said to people when he got to his locker, as you mentioned. I hope the man's okay. Obviously, I don't think he's anything super serious by the looks of things. Who knows? But I do think Adams will get at least a game for this. I mean, you can't let that slide if you're the league. But I'll be honest, and by no means am I saying it's okay, obviously, folks. But I'm just shocked it doesn't happen more, or
more just accidental ones where you don't even see the person, you kind of bump into them. And these are big, strong football players, and maybe you don't even realize. You think it's a little tiny bump that can. The layperson gets laid out from that.
Yeah, that too. And there certainly are some media people, a lot of non-players that are a little aggressive in these situations too. I mean, they want to be first in line. They shove a microphone in your face. And that's not what this guy was doing. But I am shocked there aren't more instances over history of shrug them away. I'm not saying push them down or anything, but just get out of my face. I'm pissed off. I just lost.
If someone flashes in front of you, you're not paying attention. You don't know who that is. Maybe it's a crazy fan who just ran on the field to attack you or something. And so it is a weird situation there on the sideline.
It is.
And I know last week we saw Bobby Wagner when some protester ran on the field, tackled him, and that protester was trying to file charges too. I think two very different situations there. Clearly, but I'd be surprised if Davante Adams, something doesn't come down, whether it's fine or suspension for him.
Yeah, and side note, they were without Waller in this game too. I mean, he dressed, he played, and then I don't think he played more than a series. I'm not sure when he went out.
Somewhere right in that first series, might even been a first play of the game. I think he left.
It was super early. Yeah, there was also another phantom. Roughing the passer call too.
Another one. You got to stop the over officiating. That's one of the difficult things. And I know you're trying to protect players, but it's got to be egregious and so obvious. It can't be where, the rule says if there's this little extra thing, you got to call it. It's like, no. Is it something that's clear and obvious? You throw the flag. If not, you can't. We can't start having this. It's already over officiated. And that's really the problem with officiating. I think this day and age in the NFL is you're asking officials to do too much. You've got to simplify the rule book, not add more to it. It's got to be egregious. And I think you got to let guys play on offensive and defensive pass interference and those kind of things too. And so
it's a bit of a problem. Yeah.
You got to be able to sack a quarterback.
Right. I mean, this is a tough physical game, and it always will be. And I think people need to accept that first and foremost. I mean, I'm all for player safety too, but I mean, those are game-changing plays.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, next, Odell Beckham. Could he be making a comeback to the Los Angeles Rams? And what other NFL coaches, now that Matt Rhule has been fired, are on the hot seat? And do the Carolina Panthers have a specific plan in place for their next head coach that's currently in a broadcast booth? We'll get to all of that next, but I'll let the folks out there know about Tommy John. Tommy John has some of the most comfortable underwear I have ever put on my hindquarters. Fall is chaos in your pants. You're overheating 1 second and freezing the next. To be ready for anything, you need underwear that can handle everything. It's time for Tommy John underwear. And Tommy John sent me, some tops, some bottoms. The second skin underwear, I'm blown away. Like, I don't know why they haven't been making whatever fabric they're using for this. Why isn't this what all clothes have been made out of forever? Like, I was genuinely surprised when I put them on. I was like, this is literally the most comfortable underwear I've ever put on. And now I got to go back to Tommy John and buy myself some more, because one is not going to do it for me. In Tommy John underwear, you're that much more comfortable, so you can do everything better. Whatever problem you might have with your underwear, maybe they're not quite breathable enough for you. Maybe they don't support you enough. Maybe everything's kind of loose in there. Maybe it's too tight and you just don't feel right. Whatever it is, if you're active or if you're just lounging, Tommy John's breathable, lightweight fabric has 4 times the stretch of competing brands. They come with no wedgie guarantee, which is key for a lot of folks out there. And thanks to a non-rolling waistband and legs that never ride up, plus they feature a horizontal quick draw fly and a hammock pouch support. It stops the awkward swing and flap, as they call it, giving everyone something to be grateful for. So go to TommyJohn.com/lockedon right now, and you can get, it's a great deal, 20% off your first order, 20% off at TommyJohn.com/lockedon. That's TommyJohn.com/lockedon. See site for details. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Odell Beckham. I think it's probably pretty clear that there's some teams out there that could use Odell. Looking at the Green Bay Packers, and there's been a little bit of whispers that maybe Odell and the Packers could be a marriage, and I could see that absolutely working. Aaron Rodgers still not finding that go-to player now that Davante Adams is gone. Thought it'd be Allen Lazard. He's not really doing it. They're going back to Randall Cobb heavy last week. I don't know if that's the ideal plan for the Green Bay Packers, but I think the most likely scenario, and that's what some of the reports are saying on Tuesday, is that a reunion with the Los Angeles Rams and that Super Bowl run could be what could help and ignite that Rams offense, because clearly Allen Robinson's not really getting it done. But Matt, I don't know if Odell Beckham can play left tackle, because I think the offensive line is a bigger problem for the Rams than even wide receiver.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, linemen are such a shortage in this league. If you can play at all, you're already on a team. The Rams don't have a lot of resources past the season to rebuild that offensive line. I'm worried the checks are coming due on this team. But, hey, it's worth it. You got a Super Bowl. I mean, no matter what happens after this, it's all worth it. Odell would be a great addition, assuming he's close to the guy we saw last year. I thought he was phenomenal last year, to be very honest with you. I mean, I didn't get enough pub because Kupp was the one, but I'm not saying he was Odell of 2000, 8 years ago or whatever, but he was a really good player, much better than the version of Allen Robinson we're seeing now. I heard this morning, but I haven't confirmed it, but it certainly makes sense that the duo of Kupp and Higbee have the combined highest target share of any 2 receivers on any 2 teams in the league. And that makes all the sense in the world. And Kupp deserves it. And Kupp is an amazing player. I can't believe that he gets open the way he does. But Higbee, with all due respect, he should be the 4th target. I mean, Odell should be 2, Robinson should be 3, Higbee should be 4, not, nearing Kupp land in terms
right,
of,
or even 5 behind Cam Akers. Or
right. Yeah. So it would make sense. I mean, they could certainly use the jump start, the kick in the pants. I mean, I'm pretty worried about the Rams.
Aaron Rodgers was asked about it. He said no need to comment until Beckham's healthy. And remember, that was as late season injuries you can have. So it's still, I think it's a mid-November return is what is the target for Odell Beckham. So it's still going to be a little while. He's not going to help you. You're looking more for a playoff receiver than you are to get you into the playoffs receiver. I guess, late season, mid-November, he can help you out the last, month and a half before you get into the playoffs. But, how good is he going to be right out of the gate? So it's definitely not something that's going to help teams right away. Here's another quick name I've seen on the rumor mill. Now that the Carolina Panthers are doing things, do they go to a complete rebuild and maybe dangle someone like DJ Moore on the trade market? Yeah.
And you would think McCaffrey would be in that mold as well.
I think McCaffrey, because I know there's been a lot of questions for me on Locked On 49ers about McCaffrey. I think his contract is still in a situation where it's like just $25 million in dead money. I think next post June 1st I think that's the first time they can actually get away from that, unless they're just willing to eat all of the dead money this year. But I don't know if a team would want to take on whatever else is left for that. So I think the McCaffrey one's just a little bit harder because most teams don't want to pay that much for a running back, and it would be such a cap hit for the Panthers. I think he's a post June 1st cut at earliest, but if a team could come calling and they could make that work, that would be an ideal addition at running back for some teams.
Here's two teams for that one that I think I might overpay either draft pick wise or salary cap, chunk that I pick up. KC, Buffalo. I mean, imagine those two.
Buffalo.
Oh, man.
Buffalo could fit that in because they're just so pedestrian on the ground, but I don't know if they even need.
I don't know if either of them need it.
I think, cold weather, January, you're playing a playoff game. I think it would really help. Not that Christian McCaffrey is that ground and pound type of player, but just, help on third downs when you need to dump it off to a running back. It would be a huge upgrade. And they've really never found anything more than sort of a number two, basically a number two running back playing number one running back in Buffalo, even with all the draft picks they've made. We did see Cook make a nice play in garbage time this week for the Bills, and that was really the first appearance he's made this season after looking pretty good in the offseason. But again, he's like sort of a scat back third down, move around type of player.
I think KC's actually the better fit. I mean, one more playmaker there you could trust. Like if I were the Bills and he landed in KC, I'd be like, oh man.
Yeah. It would take some maneuvering, restructuring, and the Panthers willing to eat a lot and put all that on their salary cap for. Because I think it's 25 million hit and then 17 in I don't know. I can't remember what it's a
lot. I know
it seems like something that would not allow that to happen. But DJ Moore would absolutely help some teams. And
that's what I was about to say. There's probably 10 teams that could use DJ Moore. Green Bay at the top of the list.
Oh, dude, yeah. If I'm the Packers, it's like, okay, don't wait for Odell. Go get DJ Moore right now.
Yeah, or even Jacksonville, or someone with a young upstart quarterback.
Oh yeah,
more. That's not bad either. Yeah,
that actually,
I think we'd all love to see DJ Moore get out of Carolina.
Yeah, it's just it's unfortunate.
Poor guy.
But and then if you're Carolina, then what do you start dangling? Brian Burns? Like what do you?
That's what I was gonna say. I wouldn't touch the defense though. Like my off limit guys would be like Ekwonu, all my young defenders. But pretty much anyone else could probably be had.
So here's the other thing. There's been some whispers out there that maybe the early firing of Matt Rhule means that they're trying to put their ducks in a row, and maybe Sean Payton is the whale that David Tepper is going to try to hire as the next head coach for the Carolina Panthers. And if that's the case, we saw what Alvin Kamara did, what multiple running backs have done for the New Orleans Saints when Sean Payton was there. Maybe Christian McCaffrey is that perfect player there to jumpstart the beginnings of a new offense under Sean Payton. Could that be a fit for the Carolina Panthers?
I mean, I certainly, if I was breaking in a young quarterback, Corral or a first-round pick or whomever, having a back like McCaffrey, Kamara, I think is quite useful, just to make that transition a little bit easier, especially if you can't get much in return for him at this point. But, yeah, I think that would make some sense. It seems like a very Tepper thing to do, though, is go get the biggest name out there. And if you're the Saints, you and I have talked about this a little bit, that, they've maxed out their credit cards to no end, much like the Rams. Someday that's going to come due at some point. If you could get a couple picks for Peyton or have a couple teams competing for him, that might be exactly what you need to get an infusion of young, draft pick guys.
Right. Actually, that's a great segue into our next conversation about coaches that might be on the hot seat. Mm-hmm. Is Mike McCarthy no longer that hot seat coach? Where
can he be?
Yeah, because the Cowboys were always sort of like, well, that's where Sean Payton's going to end up. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you could fire a coach who's gone 4-1 with the backup quarterback now in Cooper Rush. So let's talk about those hot seat coaches coming up next. But if you want to get involved in any football betting this season, and those week 6 lines are up, and in fact, if you want to get a jump start all the way through the season with those weekly lines, they are up at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. We're not just talking about NFL football, college football, NBA, Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, golf, even Vegas casino games you can play at BetOnline. So get to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about all of the trends and all of the action. And you can even bet on those, which coach will be fired next in the NFL and where coaches will land and where Matt Rhule will land. It's 30-something to 1 odds that'll even be back in the NFL. I think the college ranks is back to where he is going to be going. BetOnline, where the game starts. The other angle to potentially someone like Sean Payton to the Carolina Panthers, Matt, is that you just went the college route. You got a hot name college coach. You want to go, okay, that didn't work. What's the opposite of that? How about a guy that's won a Super Bowl in the NFL, well-respected, one of the best NFL coaches of this generation of coaches? That's probably got to be the number one guy on your list. And any team that's going to look for a coach this year is going to be talking to Sean Payton, right? So does that mean
sure.
the New Orleans Saints? By the way, who could use Sean Payton? Probably the New Orleans Saints. But, is this going to be like a bidding war type of thing where the Saints end up getting a lot more in return since they still
maybe
own the rights to Sean Payton, basically?
It's been forever, but John Gruden was traded for quite a bit, to go to Tampa and put them over the top and over Dungy to win the Super Bowl way back when. Some owners don't want to pay the coach what Peyton's going to get. He probably will be the highest paid coach in the league, being the free agent. So there are some teams out there that won't pull the trigger financially on that, which brings me to one thing I wanted to mention last segment. I don't know if you saw this, but Matt Rhule, talking about his contract, he now gets well over $800,000 a month for the next 4 years to do nothing.
And there's no, even if there's offsets in his contract, it's not an NFL contract that he's going to get. So he's going to get some mega deal from some college somewhere. He's going to get a better college job than he already had at Baylor too. Probably.
Right. It's going to be Auburn or something big. Right.
Yeah. And so he's going to double dip. Like he's going to do not feel bad for Matt Rhule at all.
$800,000 a month for 4 years. And it's more than that. I don't know the exact number. Crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable
Good for him.
There. Yeah. And
so here's what I wanted to do.
Hold on real quick. Yeah. My mind started wandering while you were talking about this. So if you're the Carolina Panthers and you do end up going all in for Sean Payton, and now you don't have a first round pick, but you need to go figure out your quarterback, right?
That's what I was going to say. Is it the fifth pick in the draft, the first pick in the draft?
How about Eastern Illinois, former Eastern Illinois quarterback, Sean Payton, brings in another former Eastern Illinois free agent quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, to get that thing going.
And have Corral sitting there too.
Yeah, Corral to develop behind him, moving around Christian McCaffrey, catch and run stuff to DJ Moore, keep building the defensive side of the ball. You might have something pretty quick there.
Maybe, especially if Corral has promise and you don't have to go get somebody else. I'm not sure that's the Tepper whale that we were talking about. I mean, he talked about flirting with Watson and Peyton.
Yeah.
I mean,
you won't have the picks to do anything, though. That's the problem. If he gets Peyton.
I don't know if we have time for this, and maybe I need to think about it more, but there is a fundamental issue here. Would you rather have Sean Payton or the third pick in the draft? You know what I mean? Because
if you're the higher you're picking, the tougher that gets. But maybe that means you don't have to give up 2 firsts. You only have to give up the 1.
I mean, or would an early second get it done, or next year's first? I mean, I'd have a real hard time trading Stroud or Young for any coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it's not like you can't get another coach, but you can't get another top 5 quarterback type guy. You know what I mean? So there's a fundamental question there of what's worth more, and they both are of great value.
So to start the season at BetOnline, Matt Rhule was the leading candidate of NFL head coaches to get fired. He was overtaken after the Dak injury in week 1 by Mike McCarthy. And that is no longer the case. Matt Rhule has now been fired, and Mike McCarthy is looking golden right now. Could the Cowboys still fire Mike McCarthy after a season where they roll into the playoffs and maybe win some playoff games? Because they were in the playoffs last year too, and he already entered the season on the projected hot seat. And talking about fishing for whales, that's what Jerry Jones likes to do too.
Right. I mean, that seemed like such a good marriage. We have a dozen games left, so we know McCarthy's going to get through the rest of the year. These dozen games could really affect the fate of some of these guys without question, but right now he's closer to coach of the year than he is, a flaming hot seat, Schottenheimer got fired after a 14-win season or something like that. I mean, it's happened. If you think the other guy's better, I understand it, but boy, it's a rough look. I'm looking at this list. I think there are some guys whose feet are hot already.
I'm going to nominate Cliff Kingsbury.
I'm going to go Frank Reich.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What about
2-1 right now? Oh, yeah, that could be a one and done situation. That has been completely underwhelming. Nothing has looked good. There's been questions about just the straight up coaching and management of the team, and the offense not getting better after adding someone like Russell Wilson at quarterback. So Nathaniel Hackett, I think it definitely has to make at least the top 5 of that list. And he wouldn't. The NFL is a crazy business. One and dones definitely happen, especially maybe if the Broncos think that there's somebody who's a real major player. They could be in the Sean Payton.
You got to remember, that's new ownership. We have no track record. They might be the most impatient people in the league. We have no idea. I mean,
and that already happened before they got the team too.
Right. I was about to say it. And they didn't hire this guy, and it's not going well. Like, they can't be sitting there watching games going, "Oh, this is great. I'm glad I spent $40 billion or whatever, $400 billion or whatever the heck it is, or some huge number for this. This is tremendous," and everyone's laughing.
Yeah, they thought they were going to be, in January in prime time, and like, hey, look, here's the owners of the Denver Broncos in their playoff.
Yeah, right.
Team. And that's not
Super Bowl trophy. Woo, this is easy. Yeah. Houston. How about Houston? Because I always thought Lovey was a placeholder, maybe for McCown anyway.
Yeah, but that was such a weird, like, why do the move last year just to have another one and done? That doesn't make any sense. That makes management look really bad.
Yeah. Washington.
Maybe you replace management. Maybe you replace management if you're ownership. You're like, what are you guys doing?
That's not a terrible
call.
And then you I think Washington is hot. And I hate to say it because everyone watches Hard Knocks, loves a guy, but Detroit?
Gosh, yeah, it's tough. I think he probably gets another year, but you got to start winning more games. And they've been in some games here, but 1-4 is not really good. You got to start seeing the results.
Yeah, I think Washington is near the top of the list, though, too.
I know this is not going to happen, but Matt, 1-4 Steelers, Mike Tomlin. Like,
I was going to bring him up because
when he stepped down on his own, maybe even like, has it run its course there? Like Bill Walsh used to say, once you're in a place for 10 years, maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah, and there's so many instances that 10 years is kind of the breaking point. He's already surpassed that. I guess it's possible. I mean, you can't underscore the thought that there is, Kevin Colbert's not there, Ben's not there. There's been huge changes that were decade-long fixtures to the Steeler organization, with Tomlin being really the only, overlap from that era. Maybe, but I was going to throw this one out there, and there's probably a lot more instances around the league. I could see Matt Canada not finishing the season as a Steelers offensive coordinator.
Yeah. That's the way to save your job. Just get rid of one of the coordinators and be like, oh, well, that was the problem. Let's move on with something else here.
And certainly if they were to move on from Tomlin, it would be a I'm stepping down thing, it wouldn't be we've just fired Mike Tomlin or,
a couple other
Carroll could do that.
Right. I was going to say Bill Belichick, Carroll, those seasons aren't going great. Those could be some step down situations, but I'm surely coaches that won't be in the fired category ever just because of their tenure. And I'm sure Mike Tomlin's one of those as well. All right. Good stuff. So. Thanks everybody for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. Back tomorrow. Mailbag time right here. Peacock and Williamson.